Hey, Mama, I'm so glad that you have joined me for this bonus episode for the month of April. I am sitting down and talking to my dear friend and mentor, Pam Strain. She is such an amazing human being. I'm so glad that she was willing to come on the podcast again for her second time on the podcast. And we're going to talk about the importance of one understanding their internal identity and how to overcome fears that might be holding us back from fulfilling our true potential. I loved everything about this episode. I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did having this conversation with Pam. We also talk about a few upcoming events, so check the show notes. If you're local to the Treasure Valley, we would love for you to join us. I hope you enjoy. Do you wake up with the intention of being a present and patient mom, only to find yourself feeling overwhelmed and depleted amidst the chaos of daily life? Hi, I'm Leslie, a mom of littles and the host of the Grounded Mama podcast. Here we will find balance by integrating practices that reduce overstimulation and stress in order to enhance your whole family's well-being. Ready to slow down and be the intentional mother you desire to be? Okay, Mama, it's time to feel grounded. Take a deep breath and let's dive in. Are you ready to dive deeper into the essence of who you are? To understand how your unique identity intertwines with your motherhood journey? To discover grounding practices that will help you embrace the chaos and mother with ease? I am about to go into an I Am Identity podcast series where we will be discussing all things identity and how it relates to motherhood and connects to your nervous system. On April 22nd, I am hosting a free one-day Embrace Your Identity virtual retreat. This is a unique opportunity to explore the themes we will be discussing on the podcast in the upcoming weeks in a more interactive and personal way. In this workshop, you will discover how to explore your unique identity, gain a better understanding of the nervous system and why it plays an important role in motherhood, and to learn grounding practices unique and individual to you and all of the mamas that are in the retreat. Embrace the chaos and mother with ease. The goal of this workshop is for you to walk away with a deeper understanding of your unique identity, practical grounding techniques, and a renewed sense of confidence in your mothering journey. Embrace the chaos, mother with ease, and join us for this transformative retreat and take the next step in your grounded mama journey. Reserve your spot now by heading over to bit.ly/embrace your identity to join a community of mamas who are committed to understanding themselves better, grounding their energy, and embracing the beautiful chaos of motherhood. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Pam Strain today. I have been honored and privileged to have her as a guest before on the Kindred Journey podcast, but now she's coming back as a special guest on the Grounded Mama podcast. And I'm so excited to have Pam here as our special guest for the month because we're going to do a little bit more of a deeper dive around identity. And Pam has been not just a spiritual leader in my life, but she has been a dear friend and mentor to me as well. So I hope everybody gives Pam a warm welcome and joining us on the podcast. Pam, for those who have not been a part of the Kindred Journey podcast and listened to your episode over a year ago, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about you and just kind of just a high level story of who you are.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me back, Leslie. It's always good to be with you. So I have been alive for a long time now, and I would just say what has formed me most in my life, and that gives precedence to what I'm doing with my life. So I'll share that little journey story first, and then tell you what I'm doing. But just growing up in a family that loved me and provided for me, but I didn't ever feel loved. And so I went on my own little quest to find that, and ultimately really discovered that in a personal relationship with God, and that knowing that or learning that he loved me, period. And I grew in that love, and I'm continuing to grow, and it's still, and we're probably going to talk about this a little bit today, but just the whole idea that nothing in me is ever going to make God sad or mad or angry, but that I'm so loved. And that has continuing to grasp that has changed the trajectory of my life, I would say. So, right out of college, I had a social work degree, but I pursued a faith-based nonprofit group working with college students and just kind of helping them know how loved they were and are. And then been doing that for 42 years now. So I met my husband when I was 2 years into that profession, so to speak, and that's what he was on course to do too. So it's changed its look as far as organizations and places that we've gone, but for the most part, my heart is to really help women in particular understand how loved they are, and once they understand that, just how they can grow into who they are, their identity, which we're going to be talking about, and live on purpose for a purpose, because that's how God made them. So that's what I love doing. I am a mom, a wife of 40 years to John, a mom of 4 sons who are all adults, and now 5 grandsons. And so that's a pure joy and privilege, and a way to love in a way that I didn't know was possible to the next generation. So, anything else, Leslie, you want me to say about
Thank you.
that?
No, it's all so wonderful. I'm just so grateful and honored that our paths have crossed in this world and in life. And I'm excited to talk about identity with you because I feel like, again, if it wasn't for some of your nudging and encouragement along the way, especially in really hard seasons of my life, I wouldn't maybe have come to full fruition on my identity. And now I'm trying to honor and live that out, for whatever God's plan is for me. But I just, especially because you gave me a book coming out of a very hard season of my life. And, here we try and help moms find balance through nervous system regulation. And I do think I was in a very dysregulated state. I didn't know it at the time, but again, reading that book, it brought purpose from my pain, and I came out of it. Oh, I think when we're in such hard times, we're in survival mode, so we don't know if we're going to come out of it the other side. So thank you again. Like I truly don't know, and I hope I've expressed enough how much of an impact you've had on my life. So I'm just so grateful for you. But something that we've talked about before, we're in this identity series on the podcast, and around identity, I think in this society that we live in, there is so much external validation or external seeking for identity, especially with I am a whatever profession we have, or I am a mother, or I am a Swiftie, whatever your identity that you want to identify as comes externally versus internally. So maybe if you could touch a little bit on what are your thoughts around, is an identity external or internal?
Yeah, that's great. And I feel like that's kind of was part of my discovery in my own journey. And I describe myself as like a chameleon, especially in my teenage years, that I would just turn whatever color I thought I needed to be, whether it was a cheerleader, which I didn't. That was one of my biggest rejections in life, is I didn't make cheerleader. So I was like, oh, if I'm not a cheerleader, what am I? Uncoordinated. So then I chose sports, and so lived it out in that. Relationships with boys, way too many of those. Thought that's what would bring me satisfaction. And so I think those are external things, and I was trying to conform myself into something versus transform from the inside out. And so once I understood that I was loved, then I could reject some of the other things that I was believing, kind of I think you call them false IDs, Leslie, kind of the lies, are false identities, things that we're living like they're true, but they're really not us. And so that became clearer. And then just as I've journeyed on, and I've come to see that I have not only am I loved, but I have a unique identity given to me by my creator, by a loving father, not my biological father, although he contributed some, but mostly from my heavenly father. And so I began to realize that he made me unique and he made me beautiful in his fashion. I'm like no other. And so I became on a journey or went on a journey just to kind of see what can I contribute to this world that nobody else can, based upon how God made me. And so, um,
Yeah. I think that's I think that's so great. I think kind of like what you said, being a chameleon and trying to try things on for size. I think sometimes we get in our own heads about what failure looks like. And if you try something and it doesn't end up working out, it's not a failure. It's sitting on the sidelines and not trying at all is a failure. So
mhm.
I think that we get in our head about what societal conditions are and how we are presumed to attach or detach. And I love what you said was instead of conforming versus transforming. And if you could maybe just talk about that process a little bit more, about the transformation versus the confirmation.
Yeah, the confirmation I've heard that is, it's like a piece of clay. And so you're building something out of that piece of clay, but the potter is the one that's making it do what it wants to do. And so the world and our society and our family of origin and our internal battles, those are the things that are conforming us to be somebody where, the transformation, and for me, and I'm just going to speak for me, where that came from was on a, spiritual basis, and that, once I knew that God loved me and that He had provided a relationship for me, through Jesus, that He does that work for me, from the inside out. And I have this, and it's a freeing process. I was going to read this quote, but I'll finish that sentence first. It's a freedom from obligation, expectation. It's really exciting. It's an adventure, scary because you're putting your foot out there sometimes and testing the waters, and, you don't know till you try. But once you step into, well, I think that God has made me this way. I think this is my unique identity, and you step into it. It's like super exciting and fun, and it comes easy. Um, I was just going to read this quote to you. This is from Jamie Winship, and I think Leslie has been talking about some of his stuff, maybe, or will be on your podcast. But, he says, God will only call you a name he would call himself. That's another way you know it's from God. He names us after himself, like a good father does. He'll call you something that moves you forward in freedom. It's something that excites you, brings you joy and peace. Sometimes what God says about it is almost too beautiful to believe. So I feel like that's more from an internal rather than trying to make it happen. I've heard this analogy with like fruit trees, like the fruit grows as a result of the vine being planted, and being watered and nurtured. It's not, the fruit is not trying to grunt and groan its way out. It just is a natural process
Yeah.
of where the roots are. And so I don't know if that helps describe what maybe
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
No, thank you for that. I think, you can't force a flower to bloom. You have to let it do its process and let it unfold on its own. And I think something that I loved what you said was that there's a freedom from obligation and expectation. And in such a outcome world that we live in, and if you're not producing, if you're not doing, we're human beings, not human doings. So I
Mhm.
think it's such a like you said, that internal battle. I feel like when you're trying to figure out who you are in this world and what your purpose is in this life, and living in the world that we live in, the human condition of life that we have, it's kind of a push and pull dynamic, because Holy Spirit might be guiding you to do something that is not societally acceptable, or
Mhm.
something that might be, again, being versus doing. So I think that's kind of where we come in, and we become these leaders for these mothers to, again, find that path and what that identity is for them. One thing I'd love to maybe touch on is as far as identity goes, and we've talked a little bit about external identity versus internal. Do you feel like your identity changes in this world, or what are your thoughts around identity? I think you kind of said that confirmation versus transformation a little bit. Maybe you could touch on again, like, does my identity change? Does it, or does it more so grow and evolve as time moves forward? And like you said, kind of that bearing of fruit and watching that flower bloom kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the second thing, that it does kind of evolve and grow. But I think I have some kind of definitions that I fall back onto as to what is identity, and one of them is who I really am in some sort of essential or fundamental way. Um, your personal identity may be expressed as that which distinguishes you from other individuals, and so it's really who we are at our core. And I so I feel like that doesn't change, because that came with us when we were born. Um, but it is a unfolding, and it's kind of like the artwork, as you know, it started, and God sees the big picture, sees the final product, but we get to kind of live it out and come into full color. The masterpiece comes as we grow and learn. And so definitely, I think our roles, and some people call these secondary identities. So say I'm a mom, no, I'm a GMA, but those can kind of, well, I'll always be a mom, always be a GMA, but say um, say my job changed, and so that those things are going to change, and seasons of life are definitely going to change. But for me, if I'm operating out of my core of who I am, and I feel like we can discover that even if we're in a job that we don't like, that doesn't mean that we have to adapt our identity to that. I feel like we have to dig deeper to find that identity, who I am, so that I can bring meaning to that job. And it may be outside of your four walls of your cubicle, but yeah, I don't think our identity changes, but I think it does grow and evolve, like you said. So
Yeah, thank you for that. I think, especially like you said, adapting our identity to belong, right? We all kind of want to belong to something, and again, we do tend to externally belong. And I think back in the day, especially when it comes to nervous system regulation, it used to be, if you got kicked out of the village or the tribe, you'd die, so you wanted to belong to something, so you could survive. And now it looks a heck of a lot different than a tiger, behind you, but it could look like social media or criticism or judgment, or like you said, adapting to a job that maybe is not authentically aligned with you, or like you said, these kind of second identities or second layers of kind of shedding that identity, or shedding that skin. Like, it's not something that will be with you forever, but it's something that can no longer evolve with your role of your core identity. And so I think that is something to remind ourselves, like, we almost take these secondary identities and make them our core. We attach them to our core identity. And I think, is there any kind of practice or tool that you use with women that you help, or I know you've seen me, for better for worse, kind of, but you've always seen that light in me, and I'm just, again, so grateful and
yeah,
you being my cheerleader. So is there some kind of process that you help women strip away those secondary identities to get to that core identity?
I think asking, just leaning in, being curious, asking questions. It's much easier for me to do it with you, Leslie, than it is with myself. So I think that's a, so I'll speak to both of those, but just even Well, about a few weeks, but yesterday it kind of came to a head again. But I was just in a funk. I'm planning this event, which I think we're going to talk about, or you have talked about. And I do it every year, and I know it's what I'm supposed to do. I feel like I've been led into the idea, and I know what I want to do, but I just cannot. I could not get grip, and I was doubting myself. I was believing lies about myself that, I should cancel it. And then I just couldn't get grip for whatever reason. And as I was talking to God, I do that often, and um, I realized that I was making this more about me than about the event and the outcomes. And so I had to go back and ask, okay, why do I want to do this? And it's not for me. It's for other people to know some of these principles we're talking about. So I have to just sit and talk out loud sometimes, and I do it through prayer, but just to process and get back to what is true about me. And in this case, I my identity, what I heard and understand God says about me is that kind of the name He gave me is a love activist. And I, at the time during COVID, is kind of it was coming out of COVID, but I was kind of agitated by all the people that were so proactive and protesting and activating, and usually it's just loud voices, but and I thought, I need to be out of my soapbox. My role was, and I just heard him say, you are a lover of people, and you love people actively. And it's true. That's just say, oh, I've never told this to anybody before. I'm high in empathy. And so if I can get back to, okay, so how am I gonna this going back to the event, I just had to kind of talk myself off the ledge and get back into, okay, what has God asked me to do based upon who I am? And let's get back to that and not worry about all the other things, because they don't matter in the big run. So that's how I talk to myself. But as far as people go, some of that's again because I don't know if it's just me, but I think you see this too, Leslie, is that I just see I love the variety of people we have on this earth and in my orbit, so to speak. And it's a privilege and honor to come across them and to speak and to help them find themselves and find their identities, because they are needed in this world. They're here for a reason, that something that I can't do, that they can. And so I just do it by asking questions and trying to get at what is the core desire, what lights you up, what brings you joy.
I love that you said it's seeing what's in others that you can't do, right? Because we all are uniquely made. We're all here for a reason and for our own purpose. And I love that you're a love activist. I love that you shared your vulnerabilities about fear ultimately, right? Like fear keeps us from doing our assignment that God has put us on this earth to
Yep.
do. And fear can impact so much. And for what, right? I feel like fear is the enemy. Fear is belittling. Fear is keeping you small.
Mhm.
Fear could be perceived as keeping you safe. Again, nervous system, you want to stay safe, you want to belong. But what I want to ask a question around the fear, like what can make you tiptoe out onto that false barrier reef that you might think is there, the fear. And then once you push past that fear and you look on the other side, it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Like, can you maybe walk through that process a little bit as far as like, where do you see fear interfering with our identity and our assignment that God has put us here on earth for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think fear keeps us from a lot of things. And I think too, and I think this touches on that. The other thing that I try to help people identify when there is, so what do you believe about yourself? And often it's not a truth. It's not a truth. It's something that they've attached to themselves that isn't really them, based. And I think that, and so then, so they're fearful because they're not acting in their true self. So there's that piece where you're not really in touch with the truths about who you are. And so, of course, if you're trying to be somebody else, there's a lot of fear in that. And that can be formed by your upbringing, by a bad experience, some trauma, lots of different things. But for me myself, when I'm in that fear mode, um, I have to just go back and sort through, okay, what am I believing that's true and what am I believing that's a lie? And it's helpful to speak it to somebody else a lot of times because they'll nail it quickly and they'll just say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're thinking that. That's totally not true. Um, but I have just learned that if I don't step out, when I do step out in fear, whether it's, I'm an introvert by nature, but I am motivated by relationships. So I don't know what that's called, an ambivert or anyway. I, I, so I'm afraid of what are they gonna, I don't want to look stupid. I feel like an imposter sometimes. And so I have to go back and go, okay, that's not true. And this is an amazing person. This is an amazing opportunity. Even if they don't like you or like what you say, you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so then I've learned that I would miss out. I would have missed out on so many amazing opportunities, like meeting Leslie, for one, if I wouldn't have stepped out of my fear and entered into that space of putting on an event or holding a conversation or leading a group or whatever it might be. And that once you step into that space and experience it, and that's how you kind of know what you're about, who you are, is when you find pleasure and delight in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there were so many good little nuggets there, whether you realize it or not. But again, that fear can keep us so stuck and small and get in. And I think fear, like I said, I feel like fear relates to the enemy because God is wholeness, God is abundance, God is, you know, you take the how out of it, and that's God, right? And we get in our analytical brains about, well, if this happens and this happens, then I'm going to be rejected and I'm not going to feel safe. Again, it comes back to our nervous system and embodying and honoring, but also stepping into, again, our assignment and what God has called us here to do. So something that you said about being curious and asking good questions and what am I belonging to, that's true and false. And so I think just kind of getting in that curiosity state, that is definitely more of a ventral vagal, I am safe, this is my baseline state. And that is how the breakthrough happens, and I think I was sharing with Pam earlier, like I did actually, I'm very curious about identity and I'm unpacking it. I'm about ready to launch an embrace your identity workshop here in April. And I want moms to kind of, again, peel back those layers. So I'm sitting here on a work trip. I'm in a hotel room and I'm having breakfast this morning and I'm connecting with my waitress a little bit. And I put the phone down, just observing the room and just seeing the people in the room. Like you said, there's so many beautiful souls here on this earth. And I asked her, I said, do you want to hear from God about your identity? I don't know this woman, but I didn't let that analytical side of my brain stop me from asking. Because again, it's not what's the worst that can happen, but what's the best that can happen from this experience. If I touch one person today and I truly like shifted their life and impacted their world, so they can actually like think out of the box or get out of that limiting belief mindset and start thinking for greater things for themselves, then that's again part of my life assignment here on earth. So I did it. I asked her and she asked if she could hug me. I took the how out of it and God showed up, and like it was better than I could have ever imagined. And I think again, when we get in our own ways, we want to feel safe and small and let fear kind of take that driver's seat. sure it might be safe, but like the like kind of like God, trusting in God, abiding in him, like there's so much more, there's so much better things on the other side of it, like that we can't even imagine in our analytical brain, because God is not analytics, he is abundance, and he is there to show up for us wholeheartedly. So I mean, just so good. Can you maybe just touch a little bit, if you want to add anything to that, I would love for you to share.
I just I'm just amazed at you, Leslie. I just it's you listening audience haven't had, maybe some of you have, but had the privilege of knowing Leslie through her journey, and it's just pretty powerful to watch and impacting for me. And she's getting teary, and I'm getting teary now too.
Mm.
But there's such it's not easy, but life isn't easy one anyway. So we might as well get in the spot where we're experiencing some freedom and some joy and living out the life that we were intended to live. And we're not guaranteed it's going to be easy, but I'd much rather go through it this way than without it,
Mhm.
without God being by my side and giving me the confidence and loving me so well so that I can love others and even in the dark times. I mean, that's why I'm saying it's hard. Yes, we still go through dark times, but usually you come through in a much better place than you would have had you not embraced your God-given identity.
Look at the Bible. What story in the Bible was just easy peasy? What
Not too many.
story? It's just um think of Moses. Just all the stories like that, you overcome the hard with the faith of God. And again, stepping into again what his assignment is for us on this earth is part of a part of our human experience. So
Mhm. Yeah.
um, can you just maybe touch a little bit, Pam, on this event that you're hosting? Again, if it wasn't for Pam hosting an event, we talked about this a little bit on her first episode with the podcast. I can link that there in the show notes if anybody wants to go listen. But if it wasn't for me stepping into courage and showing up to this event on a Wednesday night that I was kind of in my analytical brain about not going to, I wouldn't have met Pam. And then all these amazing things, like her husband actually married me and my husband, and like you just take the how out of everything. All these wonderful God-given opportunities wouldn't have happened for me if I wouldn't have said yes and I wouldn't have shown up. So I just am grateful for you. I'm grateful that God has called you on this earth to be a love activist, because that's something you truly are and you embody and embrace. And I'm grateful to be showered with love by you. If you could just touch about what this event is. It's kind of about identity. So I feel like it is kind of a full circle moment here, as we both are kind of hosting two different separate events in April. Mine's virtual, yours is in person. So if anybody is here in the Treasure Valley and wants to join us on Wednesday, April 30th, we would love to have you. I know sometimes coming to these events are intimidating, maybe a fear, we're talking a lot about fear, but you feel like there's a calling in your gut and soul that you need to go do this for yourself. That's what I had, so I followed it. But you want to take somebody with you. It's just a wonderful evening. Pam will just give a little bit more details about what to expect at this beautiful event of hers.
Yes, it's called LIFT, which stands for Live Inspired Fearless Thriving. And we founded it a few years ago just as an event for women to come together and first to know how loved they are, to learn their just that they are amazing and that we want them to know that. And then also that we need each other in that process, that we help each other live out our life's purpose and calling, and come alongside and cheer each other on when we fall or get hurt or when we do something amazing. But we usually have some women telling their story, and Leslie's going to do that. We haven't finalized it with her, but I'm telling her right now she is.
Perfect.
As well as a couple other women. And then I think what differentiates this event from others is that women are sharing authentic stories, and it's not just a canned speech, but women just sharing their journey, the good, the bad, the ugly, and and then we have a chance to learn from them, and vulnerability usually breeds other vulnerability. And I just want to say too that I know Leslie and I both have a personal faith, but Lift, we created it for all women of all backgrounds, all worldviews. And my heart's desire is just to create a safe place for women to gather and to explore and ask questions. And if there's things we don't understand, or explore, why do we have a reaction to something, and whether it's God's name or religion or whatever, what is that? And just to help unpack and explore and do that together. So it's a night of there is, I mean, it's not like just random woo-woo stuff. It's we have a program. We are
I
sitting
like
at
woo.
tables and where we'll get a little bit of interaction with each other too, which we don't get enough of that in today's world. So
Yes, we don't. And I think we crave connection. That's part of our human experience. We need connection and community. And I think this is such a great space. It's a safe space for all women, like Pam said. I just had moved to the Treasure Valley when I attended this event. And I was in my mid-20s. I wasn't married or had kids yet. I didn't know where to belong, right? I was in this new city for my job, and I was just kind of isolated a bit. And so I said yes to this event. I have met so many wonderful friends from this connection point. And so I highly encourage you, if you're looking for a place just to get out, if you just want to get out for the evening and have some snacks and some drinks, and listen to other women talk about their stories. Thank you for doing this on the podcast. I know we had talked a little bit about it, but I guess I'm going to be one of them. So if you want to hear me talk more, I will be available on Wednesday, April 30th from 6:30 to 8:30. I will include everything in the show notes. And I actually personally have bought a table of tickets for women. I'm actually doing a giveaway. So if you are interested in coming, I'm actually going to be giving away 7 tickets because I'm one of them. So a table of 8. And so I will be giving away 7 tickets for this event. So all you have to do is join my Heartbeat community and just say I'm in. I already have an RSVP link to this event in my community in Heartbeat. So that will basically be your entry, and just RSVP yes, and that will qualify you for a ticket. So it's pretty straightforward. I will include that in the show notes as well. But again, I wholeheartedly believe in Pam and what she's doing on this earth, and her assignment that God has given her to be a love advocate and activist, advocate, activist, same thing. I love activists. I think that has more of a punch. But again, I just wholeheartedly believe in Pam and what she's doing, and I want other women to feel that and be seen and understood and heard by Pam and this wonderful group of women, and be showered on, be taken care of, give the kids to a sitter or your husband for the night, and just get away. And it's for women of all ages. It's if you have a teenage daughter and she's maybe struggling with identity in school. I think that is, gosh, kids and teenagers in this day and age, my heart goes to them, because talk about identity. And when you have a phone almost attached to your hand 24/7, and friends and social media, and like, it's so much. I'm so glad I had the Nokia phone with the snake game on it as a high schooler, with hardly any cell service, because it wasn't there yet. But I think this is such a pivotal time in teenagers and young women's lives too. So if your neighbor, a friend, or a friend's daughter, anybody is welcome. Any woman is welcome to this event. So it's, again, just kind of a time for connection, a time for letting your light shine from within. That's the theme. Shine bright. You were made for more is the theme of this event. So again, it just kind of it's like a little bit of a bow on this identity series. So I just wanted to have Pam come on and talk about identity. We've discussed it before, and thank you again for being a guest. It's truly an honor.
Thank you, Leslie.
Hey, Mama. Thank you for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you, would you take a few seconds and share it with a fellow mom friend who is also navigating this journey of motherhood? Also, if you could spare a moment of your precious time and leave a 5-star review for the show, it lights me up to know that this podcast is helping you mother with ease. Time to go rest and ground down in all that we covered here today. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode with love and gratitude.